Welcome to Southgate Today. We're kicking off a new series, Identity Theft. It's looking at who the Bible says that we are in Jesus, and we're so glad you're here with us. Parents, we want to help you teach your kids what the Bible says about who they are in Jesus as well. And so you can check out our new Kemptville content every week on our Southgate Kemptville YouTube channel. Speaking of kids, this week, 100 kids are participating in our first ever Camp in a Box. And this is made possible, all of these fun activities, because of your generosity. And so we built these boxes and sent them home with kids this week in North Dundas, Ottawa West, and in North Grenville. So thank you for participating in that. If you are prepared to give today, there's different methods on the screen, and we invite you to be part of something bigger than yourself. So we're going to experience some worship together and jump right into our series.
The highest King would welcome me. I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Oh, the sun sets free. Oh, it's free. He has ransomed me, His grace runs deep. And while I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. Oh, the sun sets free. Oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I am. Oh, the sun sets free. Oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
6. And I am Beckett.
I'm Brayson, and I am 9 years old.
I am both in my 3. Basketball and tennis. I like it because it's a good sport for you to like hitting. And basketball, dribble, and then you could do it with the other hand. And it's still good for your hands too.
My favorite thing to do is probably hockey. I really like hockey because I like to skate and I like to score goals.
My favorite thing is growing up.
Growing up?
Yeah.
Oh. I would like to be a police officer.
I want to be a fireman.
I want to be a paleontologist.
Christian. And to say to love others, and that you should follow God wherever you go. And even though you can't see Him, you can still believe in Him.
I feel like God has made me to protect people, and I want to love God and my family.
Bowen!
All right, so it was back in college days, and so I know that was a long time ago, all right? But back in college, my roommate, one of the years, my roommate, he could get me snacks from the cafeteria. So it was late at night, and each night he would bring home like a different snack, all right? And so he worked in the cafeteria at the college. He'd sometimes bring me like chips, or the leftover like hamburgers or hot dogs or whatever. He'd always bring snacks, and we loved it, right? It's just like feast every night, stay up all night, that kind of thing. And you see, he had access to the cafeteria in a unique way. He had privileges that no one else had. He was able to access the cafeteria on hours that no one else could. He had an identity that nobody else had. The problem was that his identity wasn't his. He had taken an ID from someone else. In fact, it was the food service manager's ID that had fallen on the ground that he had picked up and kept all this time to get him into the cafeteria. And for the first little while, none of us felt guilty. But then after a while, we started to feel guilty about it, right? After all, this is Bible college, all right? And so we'd feel guilty about this, and he kind of turned it in, and I had to kind of confront that situation with him, and I had to stop eating those snacks as well. I mean, at one point or another, we all assume a false identity. I mean, we all assume an identity of someone else. I mean, it starts as a child when we're really little, and we play dress up, and you have ideas of what we want to become when we grow up, and we have a chest at home that is full of costumes. And my boys, they dress up as all kinds of superheroes like Batman and Spider-Man and, heaven forbid, Power Rangers and all kinds of different things. They're dressing up as those things, and they play. And little kids, they play teacher, and they play doctor, and they play like veterinarians and superheroes and firefighter. All kinds of different things, assuming the identity of something else. Even at Halloween, we dress up and knock on doors and get candy. And I mean, but when you do those things, ultimately you know that you're going to be waking up the next morning and you're probably not still in your superhero costume. You're probably still not acting as if you were a Power Ranger or whatever you dressed up as Halloween for. And so you know it's going to end, and that you're going to just go back to reality. The real problem, it comes up when we assume those identities long term. I mean, when you wake up the next morning and you're still trying to be that Power Ranger, you're still trying to be that policeman that you actually weren't, right? And you live out these counterfeit identities on a regular basis. And sometimes you don't even realize it's happening. It's something that is internally taking place within your mind and your heart and your soul. And we believe that we're not enough. We believe that we want to accomplish more. And so we find ways to make ourselves appear better, right? In fact, recent studies have shown these. Studies show that 40% of all resumes contain false information, all right? False information, including information about age, all right, information about experience and education and previous salaries, all right? So people are making this stuff up. Also, we find that other people do subtle ways. They try to assume false identities by exaggeration, by self-promotion, or by spreading gossip. Or finally, others try to identify with another group because they want acceptance, or maybe they want belonging, and sometimes as justification by the way that they live. They identify with other people who are okay with that, right? And so they get groups of people and they justify how they live or what they're doing or the choices that they're making. See, we try to change our identities ourselves, but I would say the opposite is true as well, right? There's also the opposite reality that someone would steal our identity. Have you ever had someone steal your credit card? Steal your credit card number? I had this happen to me several years ago, and I have my credit card on my iPhone. It shows me what purchases happen, right? It just instantly, as soon as that thing is swiped, shows me what purchases happen. And so I remember a few years ago, there was a purchase that came up on my phone that was somewhere in like South Carolina. And it was at a gas station, and I looked up this gas station, found it was South Carolina. I was like, that's weird. Like, Emily and I are sitting right here beside each other, and someone is using my credit card. And so at the beginning, you're just like, oh, this has got to be a mistake. But then a few minutes later, you see the thing get charged again. And then it gets charged again, and it gets charged again, and again. And then you call up the credit card company, you're like, someone stole my credit card. I don't know how that happened, but they got the number of my credit card, and you feel terrible about it, right? You feel vulnerable. You feel angry. You feel powerless. I mean, all at the same time. And stolen identities are just continuing to be on the rise. In fact, in 2019, there was $1.9 billion in identity fraud, all right? And you hear about hackers all the time accessing people's phone numbers and credit card numbers and account numbers for banks and all this kind of stuff. You see, fake IDs, fluffy resumes, and identity theft, they are not just societal problems. There's deep spiritual struggles with identity. Sometimes we knowingly live duplicate lives. We live with two different ways of doing things and associate with two different types of people, and we are one way this day, and the next day we live a different way. Sometimes we put on a pleasant Christian exterior, but inside we're angry, and we're full of rage, or we're tired, or we've had a huge letdown and we're ready to kind of boil over, and we're frustrated with God and with others, I mean, all at the same time. And we're also prone to becoming victims of identity theft in really a spiritual case, right? The devil, he seeks to steal, and he seeks to kill, and he seeks to destroy, right? That's what his go-to is. That's his motto. That's what he wants to do in all of our life. And he wants us to believe lies and accusations and try to just stir the pot internally within us. And see, in this life, we have enemies. In fact, I would say that we have three main enemies. One is the world, the second is the flesh, and the third is the devil, right? See, the world tries to conform us into what it thinks we should be, or how we should vote, or what we should believe, or what is morally right and wrong. It's an enemy to what we believe and who God calls us to, right? And one of those enemies is the world. The other enemy is the flesh, and the flesh craves glorification and self-indulgence and trying to look good and feel good and make money and appear better than others. And the flesh is an enemy, right? And then finally, the devil, he wants to remind us of past sins. I mean, like who you used to be, what you used to do, why you used to do those things. And he tries to convince you with lies that you are still that person and that you haven't left that. And he wants to entice you into the old way of living. You see, the honest truth is that putting our true identity on, it's a constant battle. It's something we always have to face. It's something that we always have to press into. See, it's a struggle to remember who we are in Jesus. It's a struggle to remember our true identity. And really what we need is a true biblical perspective to line up against, right? The mirror to look into that and to understand that this is how God has made me. This is who I am. This is what I am becoming. And we need to guard our hearts and minds in who Jesus says that I am. And so the main thought for this series, the main thought is this: who does the Bible tell me that I am in Jesus? That is the mirror we constantly have to look into. That is the reflection that we constantly need to see and keep referencing. And so this is the main thought for this series, throughout this series. And we're not looking at who the world tells me that I am. We're not looking at what my workplace tells me that I am. We're not looking at the lifestyle that I choose to live. That is not who I am, or my career path, or my family says that I am, or my spouse, or whoever. We want to know, what does the Bible tell me that I am in Jesus? That's kind of where we're going. And so each week, what we're going to do is we're going to dissect this into three main categories. And the first one is this: identity theft, all right? We want to look at identity theft. And really, this is exposing our false ideas about identity, all right? Our false ideas about who we are or who we're trying to become, to really understand that. So each week, we're going to be looking at that. Secondly, we're going to look at identity truth. Every single week, identity truth, right? Understanding the biblical truth of our identity in Jesus. And then finally, number three, every single week, we are going to look at identity transformed. All right, so if we know what the theft is, the truth about our identity and who we are, then how do we transform that, right? Reflecting on what it looks like to live in that new reality, or that new identity. You see, our identity should be and is rooted in Jesus. A few weeks ago, I went with my parents and my family, kind of went on their boat, and they have a pontoon boat. We were out on the Rideau River, and we dropped an anchor down to go swimming. As the river widened, we wanted to go swimming, so we dropped an anchor, and that anchor fixed down on the bottom, and it was solid and snug underneath a rock. Now the boat, it kind of veered over this way and over this way, but it wouldn't go too far because it was anchored in one place. See, our identity really needs to be the same way. It doesn't matter what the season, how they change, or what comes and goes, or our career path, or the choices that we make in our life, or our circumstances. We need to primarily be defined by that anchor point who is Jesus, right? That is our identity, not where we went to college, or how much money we make, or how we live, or the lifestyle that we choose, right? See, Paul once told the Colossians in 1:17, he said this: he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Just like that anchor, right? That no matter what happens, we are going to be held together with that identity of Jesus. And we shouldn't waste our lives on lesser pursuits. This should be the thing that we pursue, or we strive to become and to identify as. See, God has a plan for you, and he sees you in a unique and important way. In fact, 1 Peter 2:9-10 reads like this. It says, "But you are," and then like a list of who you are, right? "A chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. It's identifiers. It's saying who you are. We got to get this right. These are our anchor points of who God sees us as. And everything else stems out of that. You see, what we really need to understand is that we are we're made for more, right? We long for more. We long for home. We've come out of somewhere and we're heading to something, right? See, the older I get, sometimes Emily wants me to do workouts with her. So sometimes I go for a run, and the older I get, things in my body just start hurting. I'm like the least flexible man alive, and I ache and I'm sore and I don't know why and I don't know what's going on with my body. I'm just getting older, and it's almost as if my body is not meant to last forever. It's almost like there's something more coming because this body isn't going to cut it, right? C.S. Lewis once said this: most people, if they had really learned to look into their own hearts, would know that they do want and want acutely something that cannot be had in this world. See, that's the root of the theft, right? You can't have ultimately what you long for is home. It is something more that this earth will never be able to provide. See, it was 2003, and I started a 6-month internship at a church in New York. And it was time to go on my internship, and I'd settled on this church. And here's the big reason why I settled in this church is because it was right next to Houghton College, where Emily went to school. All right, and she was continuing her education. I was doing my internship, and I did it for 6 months. Lo and behold, I got hired at that church, and we stayed there, and we pursued more education, and Emily got her master's, and I got my master's, and then she became a teacher, and I was the pastor, and I got ordained there, and it was a great season in our lives. We ended up staying there for 5 years, and we got our green cards, and it looked like everything was working out great. And while there, I found that I often thought about where I used to live, like in Ottawa, in Canada, right? I often thought about Canada and what things were going on when I lived in New York, right? Is home the place of departure? I would think to myself, right? The place that we left behind, the place that you return to when the adventure is over. You see, eventually we did return back here, but while we were there was no intention of moving back. See, is home the place that we leave behind, or is home the place of arrival? As if you're renting from an absentee landlord, right? That you're longing for something that is coming. See, in 2016, IKEA had a survey. They surveyed more than 12,000 people in 12 global cities around the world, and they asked them, what makes a home, all right? And their answers, despite demographic differences, and they were strikingly similar. In fact, they found this: comfort, that's what makes a home, comfort. They said safety is another identifier that makes a home. They said belonging, that's what makes a home, and love. And so all over the world, people responded to this, and this is how they identified what home is. See, these are the identifiers of who we're trying to become, because when we find out we don't have these things, or we're trying to fill the void of wanting these things, that's where we get into the mess of identity theft, right? Or stolen identities, or living some other way because we're trying to fill those gaps. See, the nagging existence of humanity is the longing for home. A longing of finding a place that is safe, that is finding a place that is sheltered from moving around and going all over the place, is to finally settle down and to grow ourselves or our families, and to find some place that accepts us and loves us unconditionally. It's a huge part of our human existence that tries to satisfy these things when we are not filling it with Jesus. See, as it turns out, in God's story, home is in one sense this short-lived adventure like we had when we lived in New York, right? It was a time that we could have stayed for a long time, but ultimately it was a short-lived adventure because we were coming from somewhere, we were returning back there. We're all tenants of this life, and there's great freedom in knowing that it is temporary. And you can go and you can live in the name of Jesus, and there's freedom in that, in living open-handed, right? See, in the other sense, but you had the Garden of Eden in where we came from. And the Garden of Eden, it was an almost perfect place, right? We were provided for, and animals talked, and people lived a really long time, and there was no shame. I mean, people were walking around naked, and it was just this place that was just ideal and beautiful and amazing. And then now we're living in this temporary kind of existence, but we long for home, which is heaven. And so it's both nostalgic, looking at the past and who we once were and where we came from, but there's also anticipation of knowing where we're going. And in the middle of that, we have a great opportunity to look in the mirror and to reflect the identity of Jesus in how we live, right? It's the open invitation of God. And so ultimately, who you are is not based on who you're trying to become. It's not based on your gender. Your identity is not based on your race or your title or your career path. It's not based on whether you're a mom or you're a dad or you're raising kids. It's not based on the home that you live in or the boat that you drive, or it's not based on any of that. See, you're a citizen of God's kingdom. And you might be living in a foreign land, in a temporary existence, but you are longing for the kingdom of heaven, right? And so welcome home. Let's end with this verse here today. It's found in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 16. It says this: "Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them." And so where do we go from here? How do we start this thing off? Well, what are our next steps as we look to kind of reclaim our identity in Jesus in the weeks ahead? Here's the next steps I want you to think about. The first one is this: acknowledge where you find your identity. Where do you find that? Do you have a mask on? Are you playing dress up? Are you not really being that reflection of Jesus? Or what has stolen your identity? Can you release that? Can you release it to God? Can you take that outfit that you were wearing and put it back in the chest, like we have with all of our outfits for our kids that they dress up in? Can you put it back in there? Can you release it over to God? Number 2, live differently. Be firmly rooted in your heavenly home and spend your time and efforts for that kingdom. The now is important. It is vitally important. We live in the here and now, and we're on mission in the here and now. But live for tomorrow, right? Where we're going, where we've come from and where we're going, right? And then finally, number 3, Jesus can be your identity. I want to just give you the opportunity. Take a step to unite your life with Jesus. Maybe you're watching for the first time. What a better opportunity to start this series than to turn your life over. And maybe if you haven't done that, all we're saying is just do a 180, just to take off who you're trying to become and let Jesus be your identity. Unite your life with his, right? Allow him to kind of bring you into his presence and where he wants to bring you. Allow him to forgive your past by when he died on the cross for you, and just release who you used to be, right? Release that over to God and unite your life with him. Let me pray. Jesus, I thank you for each and every person who's watching here today. And what a great opportunity to just kind of take off the people who are trying to become and allow you to be our identity. It's just so freeing, such freedom in understanding and living like that, God, that ultimately we're not in control. We don't need to stress about the things of this world, that we are in a kind of temporary existence, God, and we're kind of living here in exile, longing for home of where you're leading us, God. And so, Father, I'm just praying for transformation today. I'm praying for strength. I'm praying for unity, God. I'm praying that you would give courage to people to take off their former selves these identities, the stolen identities, God, and just turn it over to you and press into what you'd have for us, God. And so be with us, we pray, in Jesus' name. Amen.
So if you took that step today, would you be in contact with us? Connect with us. We want to help you, journey with you. And maybe if something stood out from this teaching today, would you share it and invite someone to watch with you and help them find their true identity as well?